stick to the basics. We both know what we want, let's just keep it simple. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So just finished my cardio for today. I am still in off season and I have finished my mini cut. I dropped about 5 pounds from that. Got my weight down to, I think the lowest was 155.6. I didn't settle there, but that's about where I got. And then I'm back up now to 161.6 today, which isn't terribly surprising considering we increased food a couple hundred calories and pulled cardio down from 35 minutes to 25. And lastly, I did start a cycle again, so you can expect a little bit of water retention from that, a little bit of weight gain, not too surprising there, and really happy with the body composition changes from the cut. One thing I am really enjoying is doing cardio still, even in off season. I feel like mentally it's great to start the day with that, and from a performance perspective, I just feel better. I feel like my cardiovascular health is in a better spot, which is going to support performance. So sometimes I think we get caught up in calories in, calories out, and thinking if it's a growing season, we shouldn't be doing cardio. But the truth of the matter is, cardio is not just for burning calories. It does, but of course, if you're in an off season and you're in a significant surplus, how much of a difference is 100, 200 calories burned on one cardio session? Probably not a massive difference. We're not necessarily looking for fat loss here, but if it's enough to support cardiovascular health, which we know we really need a good amount in a week to perform optimally as humans, let alone athletes, then the benefits are probably worth having to potentially increase food a little bit to compensate, as long as you're not completely overloading digestion. So one mindset I've had to surrender a bit in doing cardio in off season is setting a specific time and calorie goal. I am a numbers person. It probably ties into my obsession with numbers when I was anorexic and I thought about calories in, calories out quite a bit, and I micromanaged my calories. That said, now I have bigger goals. My goals right now primarily are to grow and to perform in the gym in this off-season setting. That said, for me personally, I still like to have an output goal for cardio. So what I was struggling with as I came out of this cut and started pushing weight up again and really pushing more weights in the gym was I wanted to continue to hit a calorie goal, and the best way for me to do that consistently is to use the Stairmaster. However, the stairs at Gold's tend to bang up my knees if I do them consistently. So I had to decide, is my primary goal to burn as many calories as possible during the session, or is my goal to use cardio as a tool to support performance? And those two can't always align in a way that allows me to make a clear decision based on one or the other. I had to decide. So what I have decided and kind of worked through over the last couple of weeks being back in a surplus is I like variety. So in order for me to somewhat enjoy cardio, I don't really want to do the same thing every day. And from a joint health perspective, it pretty much bangs up my knees if I'm doing just one thing all the time. So I need a little bit of variety, but from a mental perspective, I need a calorie goal. So what I've done is I have 6 sessions of 25 minutes assigned to me, and I rotate around what I do. And a couple of those sessions in the week end up being a little bit longer so that I can do lower impact cardio on my leg days, but still hit a calorie goal. So today I did walking intervals, doing it at a 4 incline at 3.8 speed, going up to a 10 incline at 3.8 speed. And I did that for about 35 minutes in order to burn over my calorie goal that I've set based on what I generally output with a fairly high heart rate. of 155. So I'm always trying to beat that 155 mark. Now, yesterday I did running intervals. So I would run a minute and a half at 7.5 miles an hour and then walk a minute and a half around 3.8. And I only need to do that for about 25 minutes to burn 175 calories. So either way, I'm hitting that goal, but I'm not doing it in a way that's so neurotic that I lose sight of my overarching goal, which is to support my body to perform in my workouts. Especially as women, having coached quite a few women, I run into it a lot where we get overly focused on the caloric output to the detriment of our workouts. And when we start to do that, we lose steam within our training, or we start to develop joint issues that impact our training negatively because we can't surrender this idea of I need to burn as many calories as possible in this session for the idea that I need to have a quote balanced lifestyle, which in my opinion is healthy cardiovascular activity to support your goals and performance as an athlete, in combination with performance support through nutrition and adequate recovery, and ideally supporting your joints and other areas of life such as your cardio, your day-to-day movements, in order to perform well in the gym. And if we can prioritize both of those goals and find the middle ground to meet them both in the best way possible based on our current physique goals, I truly think that we can perform as the highest level athletes. I think when people get too caught up in calories, both in terms of output and intake, they think, okay, cardio is just this thing we use to burn calories, to lose fat. We lose sight of the cardiovascular benefits outside of that. And you see bodybuilders pushing 300 pounds, barely moving because they don't want to burn too many calories. And at the highest level, that may be required to a degree, but then we start to see a lot of cardiovascular issues on top of those that we see just from the lifestyle associated with bodybuilding. So look at the big picture, understand your goals, and really dial in whether or not the actions that you're taking, be that cardio, your lifestyle, the way that you sleep, your stress management, are all supporting your primary goals in the best way possible.
There's something going strong, stronger. 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 There's something going strong and stronger. There's something going strong, stronger. There's something going strong and stronger. There's something going strong.
So we're starting this hamstring focus leg day with a lying leg curl. One of my favorite combinations of exercises is starting with one that really focuses on getting that muscle short, followed by an exercise that really lengthens the muscle. So I hear a lot of people say they don't connect well with RDLs or don't feel their hamstrings. That doesn't necessarily mean that the hamstrings aren't working, of course, because we know the function of them. So if we're challenging the function of the muscle, then logically we should be challenging the muscle. But from a feels standpoint, I find that having leg curls before RDLs can really help with that mind-muscle connection during the movement. And personally, I just think it feels great to get a lot of blood flow, get a lot of tension into the muscle, and then stretch it out with an exercise such as RDLs. I also find that my hamstrings are a little bit more stable. I've had issues with hamstrings in the past in terms of injuries, with a right adductor tear and a potentially pending hamstring tear on the left, where I'm feeling a lot of tightness that's been a bit progressive. I find that I just feel safer going into the RDLs with that blood flow already in the muscle. So here we have shifted from barbell in the first weeks of our program to dumbbell RDLs. And I've really been liking this because it's a little bit more stable. I'm able to keep the weight closer to my center of gravity, so I'm getting less low back involvement. With a bar, it's going to drift out a bit more in front of you just because of the mechanics of it. Here you're able to engage your lats more, keep the weights a little bit closer to your center of gravity, and so limit that low back involvement. In terms of positioning here, I don't go with a hard back arch or really try to say open up my hams and glutes here, because I am trying to get a little bit more glute involvement. With RDLs, you have some options based on your hip position as to what you're targeting primarily. Obviously, it's a hip hinge, so you're going to be working your glutes, your hamstrings and adductors, as well as your low back. But you can bias one muscle group over another. Here I maintain more of a posterior pelvic tilt to keep the tension more in my glutes. Then we're moving on to a glute ham raise. This is a new movement to my program, and you might be able to tell here it's a little awkward for me. It's one that's very much challenging my hamstring strength. I cannot get more than 10 reps right now, but I've really been enjoying this movement for a couple reasons. I feel like I'm able to challenge the hamstring at both the knee and the hip, as well as a bit of isometric tension that I maintain throughout the movement. This also, in a way, is teaching me to limit that low back involvement and really isolate the focus to the hamstrings, which is transferable to other exercises. After the hamstring dominant movements, we move into the more compound movement of the day, which is a leg press. Leg press is an awesome movement. It's one of my favorites. I've never been a big squatter, but I've had leg presses in my program for as long as I can remember. I love leg press because it's very stable and you can really just focus on overloading the legs safely. It's also a great movement on which to learn to go to true failure. True failure being that inability to complete one more rep with safe or productive form. Taking an exercise to true muscular failure really requires some stability externally in the movement, and a leg press provides this. For form and setup here, I have my feet about mid to high on the platform. I'm trying to get a good combination of both knee and hip flexion here. Because today is such a hamstring dominant day, I do want to get a little bit of quad involvement. And with a movement like this, you can't purely isolate either the quads or the hamstrings. That said, you can bias it based on foot position. So here I take about a shoulder width stance, allowing for some internal rotation of the hip, and really focusing on getting a good amount of knee flexion here for that quad volume for the day. Finishing up this workout with a standing calf raise. So I like to make sure that I have both a seated and a straight leg version of a calf raise. I love this machine because I'm able to really drive against the pad, so I don't have to stabilize my low back as much as I would on a normal unsupported standing calf raise. People struggle a lot with calf growth, and what I often find is one of two things. Not getting a full range of motion where you're truly getting that full stretch through the bottom and driving up hard through the toes. And also just not loading weight effectively. I think a lot of people overload this to the point where they're not able to control through the full range, including that active control of dorsiflexion, and they limit themselves because of maybe ego around lifting a certain amount of weight, or the belief that heavy weight is going to build cats. But truly, heavy weight's only going to build a muscle if you're able to fully contract that muscle under the weight.